Hello, Stephen, my man. It's so nice to have you on the show today. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, Elijah. How are you?
I am doing quite fine, and thank you so very much for being here. You see, I truly appreciate you. And you see, Steve, oftentimes I love to thank my guests for two things. And I do this so often to the point where it has become my anthem. So, firstly, Stephen, I want to say thank you so very much for investing in yourself. You see, you are on this platform right now because you did invest that in yourself. And oftentimes, my man, I love to make reference to the amazing mango tree. They say some couple of months back, Stephen, I was on a particular road and just by the roadside, there was this very tall, unattractive mango tree. And I used the word unattractive because the mango tree's got no mangoes on it and the leaves were all dry. So I just walked past it and I went my way. But you see, Stephen, just recently I was on that same road. And this time around, a lot's changed about the mango tree, you see. The mango tree caught my attention pretty good from a distance. And immediately I got the urge to move so close to it, which I did. And it wowed me because now the mango tree's got a lot of mangoes on it, beautiful green leaves and healthy branches. And not just mangoes now, Stephen. I'm talking about ripe mangoes. It was such a lovely experience that day. And I was so, so excited. Here is my point. The fact that you dedicated your time, energy, and resources to becoming the amazing Stephen that you are today, that alone has made it impossible for me to skip you. And that's why you got the request from me to be on the show because I was attracted to the fruit of all that you're doing, your philosophies, your insights,
Mm.
the impact your work is having, and how you are offering your solutions, Stephen. This stuff's so beautiful. And just before I sent you that request, I said to myself, I've got to benefit from these beautiful things Stephen is doing. And not only me now, because I don't want to look selfish, and even with the audience. And here we are today with the amazing Stephen. So thank you so very much for doing that to yourself. And secondly, thank you for saying yes to the invite. Because if you had said nope, there was nothing else you could do about it. Thanks so much, my man.
Thank you, Elijah, for that great explanation. And I agree completely. Nature is such a wonderful thing to just immerse ourselves in, and what it does is amazing. That's a great story of the mango tree.
Thank you. So let's get started. You see, I am quite excited to have you on the show today for some reasons. Firstly, my interest in knowledge seeking. I believe in order for one to transition from a terrible situation to that of a beautiful one, Stephen, I believe it takes the application of knowledge, the information, and not just knowledge alone, but the application of it. And you see, my man, ever
Mm.
since I discovered that light in the Hebrew means knowledge and darkness ignorance, I've been so keen to knowledge seeking. Why? Because I do not want to remain in the dark. So that's going to make our conversation today very important to me and even to the listeners. And the second reason why I'm excited to have the incredible Stephen on the show is for the sake of the audience. They say, Stephen, we live in an age where information is as abundant as grains of sand. We've got lots of information flying out there. So those folks trust me for quality, high opening, and very important information, of which I am totally convinced, Stephen, that our conversation is going to be insightful and impactful. So for that reason, Stephen, let's get started with your introduction. Talk to us about your personal or your professional journey, because right now we are so curious. We want to know how Stephen got here. Then afterwards, I've gotten some beautiful questions for you. Okay, Stephen, my man, over to you.
Thanks, Elijah. Appreciate it. And I'm happy to be here as well. I'm 70 years old, so I have a big background, but I will try to tell it all to you in just a few seconds. Have been a seeker of spiritual understanding of life literally since I'm a young teenager. I grew up in the 60s, and that was a time here in America where there was a lot of young people seeking, trying to understand life in a bigger way, and took transcendental meditation, and that's been a big help to me over my life. In my personal life, I got married young, have 3 children, and I'm a grandfather, and life is wonderful. On my professional side, I entered a small family business and was very fortunate from the late 70s through only 5 years ago. It was about a 40-year period, built it into one of the larger financial services firms and sold it. And that's when I totally focused on my spiritual growth as well. And that's where this book came from. It's called From Grief to Gratitude, which is my journey after both my son passed away at age 23 in a car accident. And then a few short years later, my wife passed away. So I had a lot of very, very close death that you can either curl up into the corner and just feel sorry for yourself the rest of your life. Thank God I'm not designed that way. So what I did was I found ways to continue to move forward in a healthy way. I journaled on a daily basis, and that's where this book emerged from. It's a very personal book with all my personal journal entries and all of the life lessons that I've learned along the way that I think help create a pathway for people that are also going through their own major life struggles and or loss in their life. So that's a little bit of my background.
Hey, Stephen, you are such a strong man. I tell you, and so sorry about the loss of the folks that are so close to you, your child and your wife. That must have been so tough on you. And going through all of that, and here you are still standing and with this amazing smile and what that you're doing for the world. That's
Mhm.
amazing. Okay, so let us talk about grief and also the mind. So, why is the mind so noisy during grief?
Yes. Grief, like any very strong, intense emotion, has a tendency to take over the thought based mind. And I distinguish between the thought based mind and what I feel is something far greater than the thought based mind, which is transcending it to a place where thought really quiets down. The volume of thought quiets down so that we can see things a little bit more clearly. But I think when we go through any kind of a life challenge or when we go through something as intense as loss, thoughts only know what they know. It's usually based on what we've learned and been programmed in the past. And thoughts have a looping kind of a motion about them. They don't provide any answers or solution. They just continue to loop and loop and loop. They say that we have over 60,000 thoughts per day, but yet the vast majority of them are the same thought. And when you think about that, that is so true. We have the same thoughts over and over and over, and many times day in and day out. And it's all based on the past and it's all based on programming. And thought does not have answers in it, I have found. And what happened in my life is I got to a point where I relate to it in my book as I hit rock bottom. I got to a point where I felt there was no place else to go. I was in such physical, mental, and emotional pain. I was relying on thought to try to provide me with answers because that's what we're all trained with. We'll think, you got to think. But thinking is very limited. And what I found when I hit rock bottom, and I was literally in such pain, physically bent over in pain, mentally and emotionally, just angry, of confused. And I remember hitting a point where I felt there's no place else to go. And then this little door, maybe, or a little dim light came on, and it basically said, there is another way. And that's when I knew there was another way for me to look at this experience in my life other than the way I was looking at it, which was just with thought, everything focused on myself. Poor me. I lost my son. I won't be a grandfather. He won't be in business with me anymore. And everything was about me. It was very ego based, basically. I hate to say that, but that's what it is. It's very self centric. You're very centered on your own feelings. And when that very dim light went on, I remember realizing it was probably within the next day or two of me journaling that I can look at death in a different way. I can look at this from my son's side of the experience. I can look at it and support his ongoing and growing journey. While he was my son for 23 years, I always supported him and loved him. And, whatever he thought was right in his life within reason, I just totally supported him. And I said, in his death, while I don't agree that he should have died at 23, but I had to accept it because I believe that the universe does not make mistakes. So when I accept that the universe does not make mistakes and that my son was destined to leave this planet and leave his human experience at age 23, well, then I need to focus my attention on him, on his continued journey, and supporting him in his ongoing journey, wherever that may be. And that began to turn everything around. Rather than me think about what could have been had he lived, I began to think about what can be. I can have an ongoing relationship. I could journal to him every day, which is what I did. And it was almost like learning a different language and talking to him in my journaling and having a relationship with him. And eventually I began to relate to my son, not only as my son that I loved so much, but also as my spiritual partner, that we were walking down this spiritual pathway of life together. He was just on the other side and I was on this side. So that's where I think grief can overtake your mind until you get to the point where you realize the thought-based mind is not going to give you any answers. And then somehow, some way, maybe through the grace of God, something else opens up and you start to realize there could be another way. And then you've got to make effort to want to pursue that other way. You can't just keep falling back into feeling sorry for yourself. So I hope that answers part of it.
How can anyone grieving right now move from that situation to gratitude?
Yeah. Well, a few of the big things that I realized is that the things that come along with grief, which are anger, sadness, confusion, frustration, all of these very intense feelings, I started to realize that those feelings are not me. I don't have to identify with those feelings. As an example, there was one day that I was feeling really, really sad and lonesome. I was really missing my son, Christopher, more than usual. It was just a big wave of sadness. And while I was staring out my window and just feeling this sadness, it occurred to me that I can't be this sadness if I'm the one that's observing the sadness. I must be something bigger than the sadness if I'm witnessing and observing that I'm feeling sad. So I started to realize that those emotions are not really me. They're passing through. They don't feel good as they pass through. But if I don't engage with them, if I don't put them into my mind and mix them with thought where they turn into stories about poor me and I'm a father who lost his son, if I didn't turn them into dramatic stories and I just felt the feeling and didn't engage, those feelings would eventually just begin to pass through. Might take an hour, might take a day, but whatever it was, I could go on with my day, still feeling the sadness, but knowing that that sadness is not me and I can continue to move forward. And so that was a big part of breaking away from grief and knowing that there were further steps, accepting, like I said before, that the universe doesn't make mistakes. I read a lot of science, and science will tell us that the Big Bang happened 14 billion years ago, and life's been unfolding for all those 14 billion years. We live on this little tiny planet Earth relative to the universe. It's like a piece of sand on the beach, and yet this is where all of humanity has ever known anything. We're one of 2 billion planets in the galaxy, in the Milky Way galaxy, and we're one of 3 trillion galaxies, they say, in the observable universe. The reason I say all that is that life's been unfolding freely for 14 billion years. It's never asked for my opinion. It's never asked if I agree with it. It's never asked for me to judge it in any way, shape, or form. So why now do I disagree? Why would I resist what life is doing? Life is just unfolding. And if part of life's plan was that my son was supposed to die at 23, then I just had to accept that. And in accepting that, I was able to start, as I said before, moving forward in a more healthy way. Those grieving feelings still came, but as I continued to journal, as I continued to realize I could support my son, as I realized that the love I have for my son is within me, and I share it with him. It's nothing that I had to get back from him. Love is about giving. Love is not about getting. And so I realized that by giving and sharing my love with my son, that I would still feel the same level of love for him that I always did, whether he's physically here or not.
Amazing. Understanding and accepting that the source of all things does not make mistake. Life is about giving. I got that. I got that. So finally, okay, what is conscious leadership? Can you talk to us about that?
Conscious leadership, I had an opportunity to really apply in much of my life. I was the CEO of a pretty large financial services firm for about 30 years. We had about 150 people that worked for us. And what I found is that I used to think in terms of I'm a leader, but I'm a servant leader. I'm here to serve. I'm not here
Right.
to lead in any kind of a way where, you throw your weight around or you bang people over the head. You're there to support people to become the best that they can be. And one of the greatest attributes, I think, of conscious leadership is to be able to look at someone and maybe more than they even realize, you can begin to see what their strengths are. And then you help them build on their strengths. A lot of people, everyone has unique abilities, everyone has strengths, but we also have weaknesses. And for whatever the reason, human beings dwell on weaknesses. Weaknesses are just what they are. It doesn't mean you're weak. It just means you don't have a lot of experience in that area, but you do have areas that you're very good at. And those are the things that you have to build on. Those are the things that you have to help other people build on if you're being a conscious leader. And you've got to give people a vision that they can truly grasp onto and see how it's going to benefit them and their family, as well as the business that they're working within. So that's how I'd summarize conscious leadership.
I tell you, and that's a fantastic one. Every leader is to, implement that. We must have the understanding that we are supposed to serve the world our gift and not bend people over. I got that, Stephen. That was a fantastic one. So to bring this to an end, Stephen, what would you like to leave the audience with, like a final thought? And to those individuals who would like to reach out to you, learn more about the wonderful stuff you're doing, make a purchase of your fantastic book, or even ask you questions. How can that be possible?
Well, anyone can reach me very simply on my website, which is stephenferrara.com. Very simple. I didn't want to forget it, so I just named it after me. It's Steven Ferrara, Ferrara.com. And you'll be able to get to all of the book and all of my background and articles and everything else just from there. But what I would like to leave the audience with is that we as human beings are such powerful beings. I think in our essence, we are truly spiritual beings, for lack of a better word, that are having a human experience. This human experience lasts for maybe 100 years if we're lucky. But the spiritual experience is something that continues on. We've probably come from someplace and we're going someplace. And this 100-year period of time as a human being on earth is like a classroom. If we could approach every day of our life as a student with an open mind, a curious mind, looking to learn from every experience that we have, every interaction that we have with another individual, it changes everything, because now you look at life in a way where, what can I learn from this? Instead of being judgmental, you look at people with curiosity and you want to learn about them. You want to learn about different cultures. You want to learn about different religions and races. You're interested. You're not just closed minded into your own little small world. So I think a big thing that we need to do in the world, and certainly within our societies, is be more open minded. We need to be student minded. And the last thing I would say is we need to take responsibility for how we choose to live our life. And the way that we do that is if we're consciously aware and we're observing. Whatever goes on in life is just going to keep going on. I always say the world just keeps worlding on. The world is just going to keep doing what it does. The way that we have total responsibility is how we respond to what's going on in the world. And that's where we have total power, total control, and total responsibility, where we can choose how we're going to respond to whatever life is unfolding in front of us. And therefore, we have total control as to how we're going to experience our life. We can experience it either through love or we can experience it through fear. Those are the two extremes.
Love of fear. I got that. So that's going to be the end of the show, Stephen. Thank you for coming and thank you for sharing this beautiful stuff with us. It means a whole lot, my man. Thank you.
Thank you, Elijah. Bye bye.
Okay.